Now we're going to begin the new shir.
The intuitive power of your nefesh hamaskelas, of your soul of intellect. Kisham is Bain is the bina, the thorough power. You think, contemplate. Involved very deeply, and the and how he fills the worlds with a personalized, measured life. And he provides the word with a generalized, infinite life. And compared to him, the world is nothing. Is Hashem giving the world measured chayas. Save of kalam is Hashem giving the world infinite chayas. Means as far as Hashem is concerned, the world doesn't exist at all. So when you think about the Eibishter, first in Chokhmah, the essence of the idea, then in Bina, the thorough process of the idea, nailed of in the Seder of Midas, you give birth to and you arouse emotions. Right? That's how it works. What you think about arouses the emotions. Because what you think about arouses your emotions, your Chokhmah Bina called Ava'im. They're the father and the mother of your emotions. Right? The Alter Rebbe has, in the Chassidus it's brought, a Gevaldike Rambam. And the Rambam the Chassidus brings a raya from Halach and Rambam to Moyach Shalt Alev. In both ways. Sai Moyach Shalt Alev, that you can turn your heart on. Sai Moyach Shalt Alev, you can turn your heart off. What is it? A guy goes to war. He's in a killing field. Kill or be killed. And the Torah says to lav the eraisa, to be afraid. In fact, the Rambam, what do you mean don't be afraid? There's bullets flying. So the Rambam says, if you'll think about it, you'll be afraid. If you won't think, you'll be afraid. You're not allowed to think. Because the thought process of the person evokes the emotions. Even if you know it, thinking about it arouses it. You don't think about it, you quiet. That's why Chokhmah Bina is called Ava'im, because the process of thinking about it, even thinking about it again, creates new emotions. And the new emotions are, where are we? First of all, nailed him and say to me, develop awe of the exaltedness of the Eibush in your brain. Or machshavte in your thought. Later to be respectful or awed. To be embarrassed. Midulasi is the greatness of Hashem, she'ein lo safe v'tachlis, which has no end. So the process is, when you think about Hashem, first you develop what's called Yira b'moichai. Yira b'moichai is not a full emotion, it's still in your brain. It's a respect, it's a real reverence, in fact, it's intellectual. Or Pachad Hashem, fear, to actually get emotional and get excited, this is already believer. The lumdus here, at this moment, I don't know, but the Alter Rebbe holds, it appears in Tanya Kama Makoimis, the Yira is b'mayach, Pachad is b'leit. Yira is different than Ahava. He says Yira is not an actual manifestation of excitement, it's just a respect. And it brings to Pachad, which is an emotion of fear. Now, Veshuv, this is Yira and Pachad. Now, Veshuv is lively, but then again your heart will be inspired or inflamed with a very, very intense love. Kirish be'esh, like fire attached to coal. Now there's two diyukim here. Fire is loud and pronounced, it's jumping up and down. But fire is intense and potent and powerful because it's attached to coals. That's what the Rish Bayesh means. So you develop real, pronounced, potent, deep emotions for the Eibishter. There's again two diyukim. That's begilui and it's be'otmo, stark. The gilui is the fire, the depth is the coals. Okay, that's the mashal. Bechasheka v'chafetzo chuka. Chasheka means a longing, chafetza means a desire, chuka means a thirst, v'nefesh ekeke, and a thirsty soul. And of course, the Rebbe's father would explain why you need 4 words. L'gdula saying, say, baruch to the greatness of the Eibishter. V'hi, and this could reach till the madrega of kalei nefesh. In avas Hashem, you could want Hashem so much that your neshama is actually leaving your guf. It's expiring. Kedeksev, and he brings 3 psukim. Nichsef avagam kolso nafshi v'gemer. This means I love, from the word kesef, which is ahava. And my neshama is expiring. L'chatzes ad Hashem. Uksiv tzama nafshi l'kim v'gemer. Second part is I'm thirsty for the Eibishter. Uksiv tzama l'chol nafshi v'gemer. And I'm thirsty for you, my spirit. Again, 3 psukim, and there's different madregas. L'chatzes Hashem is a lower madrege. These 3 madregas in kalei nefesh are 3 different madregas. Now, the hizbonenus, the use of the brain, arouses feelings in the heart. Says the Alter Rebbe v'atzimoin, and this thirst, this want for the Eibishter, whom yisei the eish of nefesh alakis, comes from the element of fire in the divine soul. Says in books of biology, nature. V'cheinu beitz chaim, and in Kabbalah it's also written, sheyisei the eish belev, the element of fire is in the heart. U'makeir hamayim v'alechos, the root of water and moisture hamayach is in the brain. U'kmeshikasa beitz chaim sha'anun is written in Kabbalah, shehi bechinas chochma, that water is in the brain, shenikra mayim, which is water shebenefesh alakis. And stop. Now, why the Alter Rebbe brings in this piece of Kabbalah over here, you know, that Eish is in Lev and Mayim is in Meach, I do not know. But let me just say one thing to you, okay? in Kabbalah, in Zayar, it's brought that there's Yira, Ava, Yira, right? The first thing is Yira and the last thing is Yira. The first Yira is Yira Shamayim, the simplest Yira. The highest Yira is Yira Allah, which is the Dvekas and the Eibishter. In between, the Yiras, there's two Madregas of Ava, a limited Ava and an infinite Ava. Usha'ar Amid is called, and all the rest of the emotions. In other words, we just spoke about Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. And the rest of the emotions ain't unfair Yira of Ava. Either are branches of Yira or the branches of Ava. Until the same and their children. You have two primary emotions, Ava and Yira. All other emotions come from them. Stop. So a Yid has Chochmah and Bina, which is called Abba Ve'ima, a father and a mother. And they produce midas, they produce emotions in the heart. Right? You have Pachad and you have Ava Kadish Bayesh, which can bring even till Kalei Nefesh. But there's a third Koyach HaSeichel called Vadas. The emes is L'cheira, he should have put Das right after Chochmah Bina before Midas. But he wants to illustrate to you that there's two types of Midas. There's Midas that come from Chochmah and Bina, and there's Midas that come from Chochmah, Bina, and Das. And as you see in a moment, you can develop unbelievable passion, unbelievable excitement from Chochmah Bina alone, and it's a fantasy, it's a Baba Meis. Only when the Chochmah Bina is linked to Das is the emotions real. So that's how the Alter Rebbe presents it to you. He does just Chochmah Bina, Abba Ve'ima, talks about emotions, then introduces to you Das and says, real emotions can't come only from Chochmah Bina, that's to have Das. Now what is Das? Das adds nothing to your intellectual process. Das doesn't make you one drop smarter, doesn't offer you one drop more information. Never then. Das u'meloshen v'adam yodeh chava. The word Das means Adam nu chava, which is the hu'loshen is kashas v'eschava. It means to be tied to and to be attached. Das means that what you know is real. My translation of Das means maturity and integrity. Shemekashe daite, one binds his knowledge, bekeshe, with a knot that is amitz v'chazak me'ed, that is mighty and very strong. V'yitka, he plants. Machshavta, his thought. B'chayzik, with great power. B'gdul saying, say baruch, on the witness of the Eibishter. V'eini Messiach daite, doesn't distract his mind. Das adds nothing to what you understand. Das is simply a process by which what you understand is real. Kidu asipa with the Badichever. I always tell the same story. The Badichever was an Edom, Mastam by a rich Jew, as they said. He went to Mezrich and he became a chassid. He came back with Vildan Hogis. The Shved, his father-in-law, was very, very upset. What happened to the Edom? He thought he went crazy and was a weiter. So he had a whole bunch of arguments. And one of the arguments was, he says to his son-in-law, you know what? I don't want to argue with you. Tell me, what did you learn in Mezrich? He says very plainly, now I know there's a God. He says, what? You went to Mezrich to learn that there's a God? So he runs outside, calls in a goya, a shiksa, brings her in and says to her, is there a God? She says, yeah. So he turns to the Badichever and says, she never learned in school, B'chalal, she doesn't know how to read and write. She never learned in a yeshiva, she was certainly never Mezrich. And she knows there's a God. You went to Mezrich and all you learned that there is a God. So the Badichever said very plainly, she says she knows. I know. That's Das. In other words, like Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai told his Talmidim, before he passed away, they asked him for a bracha. So he gave them a bracha that they should be as afraid of Hashem as they were afraid of people. So they were insulted by the bracha. They said, that's it. All we have to have is yira of man, like we have yira of God. So you know what he answered? Halavai. Because the issue is Das. And our problem is not Chochmah Bina. We're smart guys. It's Das. That what we know should be emes. And when you have Das, sometimes you can meet a simple Pasha Yid who's not very big Talmud Chacham, but he's Makusha with the Eibishter because he has Das. He has a big London, and he's a little baby. Because Das, I believe, to a great extent, is a matana from Hashem. It's a gift from the Eibishter. But the Alter Rebbe says no. He says no, you could work on Das. How? His kashas. Think about something so many times until it becomes real. Just focus and focus and focus until it becomes real. You should plant your thought with power, with baruch on the greatness of Hashem. And never distract your mind. Even one who is wise and understanding. That's Chochmah and Bina, right? Which means you learn about Hashem and you do His bonus in the greatness of the Eibishter. And you even develop Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem. Hine. If you're not going to tie your knowledge, v'yitkan, plant, machshavta, your thought, b'chezek with strength and with diligence. Says the Alter Rebbe, you may become Havas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, however, you will not give birth to your spirit, Yid of Ava Amitis, fear of the Eibush and love of the Eibush, which is true. Ki im dimyenes shav, the whole Ava and Yid will be a dimyan, a fantasy, which is shav, which is futile, empty. And if you wanted to have credible Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem, you must have Das. Das means that what you know is real. And therefore, hadas, the keach of das, hukiyam amidus, it gives real existence to the emotions as opposed to fleeting, passing emotions. Bechusn in their life. And of course, there's actually two aspects to das. The das which is neitek klape chesed, leaning towards chesed, and the das which neitek klape gvura. Chochma and bina doesn't have an atiyah. Das, because of its depth, there's two types of das. That's why it says there's tefillin, there's 4 moichin. Shema vayim shmei kadosh v'yacha, it's chochma bina, and the two aspects of das, because you have to have two types of das. Since das is a moyach, which taka connects, there's das neitek klape chesed, and das neitek klape gvura. I think pirush avav anafeh, the love and its branches, v'yira anafeh, and yira or and its branches. The Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, used to say about Americans, they haten sich schnell on and they killen sich schnell up. They get very, very excited, and as quickly as they got excited, they forget their excitement. It's a letter from Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe, when he was here, he met different people. And one of the people he met offered to get involved in a project for him, and they had agreed that they would correspond. And the Rebbe went back to Europe. So first of all, the Rebbe wrote a letter to America saying that he was very appreciative of the hospitality and so forth, and that he had decided to stay behind in Europe and not to come to America. And second of all, he writes in that letter, this person, he writes to one of the Chassidim, this person who told me he's going to get involved with Taras HaMishpacha, I don't know what happened to him. Okay, there's a lack of that.